Now that we have discussed the double entries, let's look at the financial statement preparation process of a company. Now, we know that we have discussed some of the double entries that are there that should be passed in the general ledger. So those double entries, why should we pass? And how would it practically happen? Let's see how we are going to do it, right? So whenever a company is concerned, now let's say a company, right? They are doing, how many transactions do you think that a company would do? Per day, they would have about 1,000 transactions. Some companies, they would have about 1,000,000 transactions. But will they be able to go and record these all 1,000,000 transactions, all 1,000 transactions in the general ledger one by one? No, it's not practical. It is not practical. Therefore, what they would do is, they will first take all these transactions into a summarized document or summarized area. Then from that summarized area, they will record it in the respective general ledger accounts, right? So before going to the general, what is the transactions and what is this one? So we'll first understand what is meant by this general ledger and how this transaction process is happening, right? Something like this. So there is a transaction. A transaction will happen in the company, and those transactions will first be entered into a prime entry book, right? We call it as prime entry book. So let's say it could be transactions, could be sales, it could be purchases. What type of transaction do we have in a company? Let's say expenses, let's say drawings by the owner, capital infusion by the owner. Likewise, there could be various types of transactions that is happening in a company on daily basis. And the transaction to transaction also it's different. Now, the way that we record a sales transaction is not the way that we record the purchase transaction. The way that we record an expense is not the way that we record a purchase transaction. So, from type of the transaction and within the transaction type also, there will be different ledger accounts where we have to account. Now, for example, let's say sales. Sales, we might have two accounts. One is credit sales and the other one is cash sales. Or sometimes if we have about 5 products, credit sales also will have about 5 types of accounts. Product A, product B, product C, D, E, likewise. And cash sales also might have about 5 types of accounts. A, B, C, D, O, E. Likewise, different companies may have different types of ledger accounts used to record the transaction. So there is no hard and fast rule that you should only record these transactions in one account or you can't record in 2 accounts. There is no rule as such. So these types of accounts, the way that they create the accounts, it depends on the management. The management from one company to another company, depending on the requirement, they will create different types of accounts. So likewise, a company will have different types of transactions where those transactions are before being recorded in the ledger or before being recorded in the general ledger. What they do is all these transactions are recorded in the prime entry book. Let's say, for example, if for the day they have about 100 sales transactions, they have 20 purchase transactions, they have 30 expense transactions, they have 2 drawing transactions, then they have 1 capital infusion. For another day, this might be 200, this might be 50, this might be 10, this might be 1, and there might not be even capital infusion. So likewise, the transaction types and the transaction values will depend on the day-to-day operation. So it's not that commonly all the days will have all types of transactions, no. And the type of the transaction and the number of transactions also not consistently be applied across the board, and no. That also will be different. So depending on the day that how the operations are happening, the transactions will be there. So now what will happen is, so once these transactions are happen, or once these transactions happen in a company, before being recorded it in the general ledger for accounting, what they do is, they will look at a prime entry book. Okay, we'll stop with that. Before going to prime entry book, we will see, now we discussed the double entry, no? We discussed those double entries. So in those double entry, we discussed that particular account is debited and that other particular account is credited. So likewise, for every transaction, there are two accounts that will have an impact, right? If you can remember, for every transaction we have noted, there are two accounts that will have an impact. So those accounts, we call it as ledger accounts. Ledger accounts. So these ledger accounts, right, will be created by the company depending on their usage. So one company might have sales in one ledger account. Another company might have two different accounts called credit sales, cash sales. Another company may have ledger accounts for sales created on district basis. Another company might have a ledger accounts created for sales basis on the product basis. Likewise, company to company, the way that they record the transactions will be different, and the type of the accounts, that ledger accounts that they use to record the transaction also will be different. Right? So any particular time, any company some companies might have about 100 ledger accounts, some companies might have 50 ledger accounts, another company might have 1,000 ledger accounts, another company might have even 10,000. There is no hard and fast rule that the company must have only 10,000 accounts or 1,000 accounts or 500 accounts or 20 accounts. No, nothing as such. Right? Any company can have any type of accounts that they want. But the thing is, they should not be maintaining two cash accounts or two purchase accounts. Or likewise, it depends on the company, but they should not be duplicating the same account. Like for example, if they are creating the accounts based on product A, right? It is not good for them to create two accounts for product A. If that's the case, it will be difficult for them to identify. That also it's okay. There's no rule that they should not be creating, but they can create. But if they create it, it will be difficult. The එකම නමින් accounts තුන හතරක් create කරොත් ඒගොල්ලන්ටමයි කරදර. ඉතින් හොඳම වැඩේ තමයි එක නමකට එක account එකක් විදිහට create කරගෙන යන එක තමයි හොඳම විදිය. හැබැයි මේ accounts කොච්චර create කරනවද, accounts 1000ද, accounts 500ද, accounts 100ද කියන එක කොහෙවත් rule එකක් නැහැ. මෙච්චරයි හදන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. company එකෙන් company එක, business එකෙන් business එක, ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ type එක අනුව, business type එක සහ record කරන විදිය අනුව සහ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඉන්න accounts department එක, finance staff එක කොච්චරක් ඉන්නවද කියන එක මත depend වෙලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට accounts විවිධ විදියට create කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? So there's no hard and fast rule. Now we'll see. Now likewise, we have different types of ledger accounts. So these individual ledger accounts, right? Ledger account 1, ledger account 2, ledger account 3, ledger account 4, ledger account 5, 6, 7, 8, likewise. There could be number of ledger accounts. So what will happen is, all these ledger accounts, right, we consider it together and we call it as general ledger. Right? General ledger is where we have different types of accounts. Different types of accounts that are there in the company. So apart from general ledger, we might have trade receivables ledger. We might have trade payables ledger. Likewise, there could be different ledgers. So likewise, general ledger contains all the ledger accounts which are there in a company. So now we'll see how this general ledger will have an impact to our process. So here we have the number of transactions. And all those transactions, what will happen is, as the first step, right? As a first step, company will summarize and the staff will summarize and record this, or basically take a note of this in the prime entry books. We call it as prime entry books. Prime entry books. We will look at the prime entry, what is meant by prime entry books later. The definitions and all this stuff, we'll look at it later. So for the moment, keep in mind, all these transactions as the first point will be recorded in the prime entry book. Now, for example, this example we have taken for the first day. Day 1, we had 100 sales transactions. So these 100 sales transactions will be recording in the prime entry book relevant for the sales. Prime entry book relevant for the sales. And 20 purchase transactions will be recording in the prime entry book relevant for the purchases. And 30 expenses will be recording in the prime entry book relevant for that particular expenses. And the drawing capital likewise, we will be looking at the different types of prime entry books are available, and those type of whatever the transaction that are happening in the company, in the first instance, we will be recording in the prime entry book. And the prime entry books are not a part of the double entry system as we discussed earlier. Right? Prime entry books are not a part of the double entry system. Prime entry book is just a record where you summarize and keep all the records of the particular type of the transaction that has happened during the day or during the period that is under review. Then what happens is, from the prime entry books, we will be taking all the numbers to the general ledger. General ledger. Trade receivables ledger. Trade payables ledger. Likewise, all these amounts, whatever first recorded in the prime entry books, we will be taking into the general ledger. Right? So it could be general ledger, trade receivables ledger, trade payables ledger, or whatever. Right? Now why do we do it like that? Now the question will come into your mind as to why do we do it? Why do we include another layer? Instead, can't we record all the transactions directly in the general ledger as we discussed in the previous example? We know the double entry. We know if there is a debit, if there should be a credit. We know how the double entry has to work. So why can't we do it? Practically, it is very difficult to do those double entries. Now imagine if we have 100 sales transactions per day, and if we are going to record these 100 sales transactions directly in the general ledger, what will happen is we will have to put up at a minimum 200 transactions, 200 entries in the general ledger. Because each sales transaction will have 2 transactions, so we might have to put up 200 transactions. 200 entries. So that is not practical. Practically, a company cannot record each and every transaction when it happens in the general ledger. So that is why they are using the set of a middle layer called prime entry books. In prime entry books, what's happening is you take all the transactions. Now, for example, if it's sales, you take all the sales transactions and record it in the sales day book. Prime entry book related to the sales, we call it as sales day book. Prime entry book related to purchases, we call it as purchase day book. So in this sales day book, we will have 100 transactions for the day. Purchase day book will have 20 transactions for the day. But here it's not going to be a double entry as we discussed in the previous example. Not a debit, not a credit, no. It does not have a double entry system. Here if we say Mr. A 100 rupees sale, then we are saying Mr. A invoice number 100 rupees. Mr. B invoice number 200 rupees. Likewise, all the sales transactions, there will be a summary. There will be a list. Simply, there will be a list. Right? Then what happens is, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, the accountant will summarize what is there in these prime entry books. Right? Now let's say all the cash sales for the year, for the day, we had about 90 cash sale invoices, 90 cash sale transactions, and the total was 10,000. So that 10,000, what they do is, they will record in the general ledger by the end of the day. End of the day, as a single transaction, they record this 10,000. So without recording all 100 transactions individually, what the company would do is, company would initially record these transactions in the prime entry book, and from the prime entry book, they will take a summary, and the summary will be recorded in the general ledger by the end of the day. Now this end of the day, the frequency of recording, whether it's end of the day, whether it's the end of the week, there is no rule. So for this example purpose, I have taken this end of the day. Some companies, they might say they will record it end of the day. Another company might say they will record it at the end of the week. One company might say they will record it at the end of the month. Depends on the company's requirement. Higher the frequency of recording the transactions in the general ledger, they will have more information. Right? So depending on the nature of the business, depending on the requirement of the users, companies will set up this frequency. So there is no rule that this is the frequency that the companies has to follow. There is no hard and fast rule. Right? So then what happens is, likewise, all the transactions in the frequency that the company has determined will be passed to the general ledger. And general ledger is part of the double entry system, or the ledger is a part of the double entry system, where you will have different accounts, as I mentioned earlier, as mentioned here. There will be different accounts. So all those accounts, the related transaction will be recorded in these accounts. This account debit, another account credit, this account debit, another account credit. Likewise, all the transactions will be recorded there. Then what happens is, from the general ledger, at the end of the reporting period, again, the frequency depends on the company. At the end of the reporting period, company will be generating trial balance, what we call as the trial balance. Again, this is a statement. We'll discuss in detail as to what trial balance is later. Right? They will generate a trial balance out of this general ledger and the other ledgers. And from the trial balance, they will prepare the required financial statements. Finance statements means profit and loss statement, statement of financial position, statement of cash flows, statement of changes in equity. Everything they will be preparing based on this trial balance. So these are the steps that are required, that is being practically adopted in recording any of the transactions in the company accounts. First, there will be a transaction, and then the transaction will be recorded initially in the related prime entry book. Right? Related prime entry book means the prime entry book related to the type of the transaction. If it's a sales, that will be recorded in the sales day book. If it's a purchase, it will be purchase day book. Likewise, different types of prime entry books are available. And then from the prime entry book, the relevant summarized transactions will be transferred to the general ledger and the other ledger accounts. Right? General ledger and the other ledger accounts. And then from the general ledger, we will be generating a trial balance. And from the trial balance, the financial statements are prepared. From the trial balance, the financial statements are being prepared. So these are the steps that is being followed by any company in recording the transactions, or preparing the financial statements. So now we'll see, now this chapter what we are going to look at is the prime entry books. What is meant by the prime entry books, and what should be there in the prime entry books, and how are we preparing the prime entry books, and what is the format of those prime entry books. So we'll see. The books of prime entry, we are looking at page number 7 of the tute number 2. Page number 7 of the tute number 2. prime entry books. So we'll see. Need for the prime entry books. Why do we need a prime entry book? There is no doubt that a vital principle in bookkeeping is the double entry aspect of every transaction. That is, for every debit, there must be an equal credit and vice versa, which we discussed in the previous chapter, the double entry system. If there is a debit, there will be a credit. If there is a credit, there will be a debit. However, in practice, double entry of a transaction in the ledger accounts is not made for every time when there is a sale, a purchase, or a payment, etc. So likewise, whenever a transaction is happening, we don't go and record it in the general ledger. We don't do it. It's not practical for us to do it. Instead, it may be convenient to allow a time lag. So this time lag could be a day's time, or could be a week, or could be a month. It depends on the company to company. A record should be kept for every transaction so that it does not get lost. On the other hand, since there are so many transactions to record, it would be a cumbersome process to make a double entry for every transaction as it occurs. So now here we are looking at only 100 sales transactions. Imagine a company with about 1,000 sales transactions. If we are going to record those 1,000 sales transactions individually by the ledger, individually as journal entries, it's not going to be practical. So that's why we are using this prime entry book. Therefore, it is suggested that the transactions be first recorded in some books of accounts, that is books of prime entry, and build up, which can be used later to make the appropriate double entry in the ledger account. So we'll be recording initially, those things will be recorded in the prime entry books, and once it is recorded in the prime entry books, it will be summarized and it will be transferred to the general ledger at the appropriate intervals. It has become more a practice than a rule to enter any transaction first in the prime entry, and then the entries are posted or taken or transmitted to the general ledger account. So this is how it has been happening in the past when we were recording the transactions on manual basis. But now we have the computer systems. In computer systems also, you can see different systems will have different bases. But before transferring anything to the general ledger, all the computer systems will have a separate record of prime entry, separate module for the prime entry books. So if you need to look at anything, you can go into the prime entry book and then you can search it from those data. Now you can see common types of prime entry books. First we have cash book, petty cash book. Then we have different day books. Day books can be sales day book, purchase day book, sales return book, purchase return book. Different types of transactions will attract different day books. And then we have bills receivable book, bills payable book, and then the journal, general journal. We call it as general journal. That is also a prime entry book. General journal is where we will be recording all the transactions that are not recorded in other prime entry books. We'll be looking at it later as to the definitions of what needs to be recorded in these prime entry books and what is the format of the prime entry books. We'll be looking at it later. Next, you can see the next page. These necessities arise when there are a number of transactions in similar nature. So recording things in a prime entry book is required when we have number of transactions in similar nature, and control accounts are requires the summaries of similar transactions, providing information quickly to have a better internal control by segregation of duties. So these are the reasons why we are having a prime entry book. Now the question is, in between I am going to include another layer here. Now, every transaction that is entered in the prime entry book, right, there will be a document called source document. Right? So the source document again depends on the type of the transaction. Source document is something like evidence of the transaction. For example, if it's a sales, our source document will be sales invoice. If it's a purchase, our source document will be purchase invoice. If it's an expenditure, our source document will be payment voucher. Likewise, different types of transactions will have different source documents. And these different source documents will have different numbers. Now, for example, sales invoice 0001, sales invoice 0002, sales invoice 0003, sales invoice 0004. Likewise, there will be a number assigned to each of these source documents. And when we record these in the prime entry books, what we do is we will be taking these reference numbers to record it here. Now, for example, Mr. A, source document is SI0001, value is 100. SI0002, likewise, in prime entry books, you will be able to match the date, the reference number, the customer's name, the description, and the values. Minimum, at a minimum will be there. Right? So different types of transactions will be having different different source documents. So those source documents will be used in recording the transactions in the prime entry books. Not the recording transaction, recording the data into the prime entry books. So you can see accounting procedure here. We have the first source documents. That is, the transaction will have a source document related to the transaction. And then it will be entered into the prime entry books. And then it will be transferred to the relevant accounts. And then from the relevant accounts, it will be through the financial statements. So you can see the source documents. We have purchase invoice, a debit note, sales invoice, credit note, purchase voucher, that is PC voucher means payment voucher, receipt, payment voucher again, journal voucher, likewise. Right? So different source documents are available for different types of transactions. And then you can see prime entry books also. We have different types of prime entry books. Purchase journal, purchase return journal, sales return journal. And then you have a PC book. PC book, you can cut that. It's duplicated. After sales journal, you have PC book. You can cut that. And then you have PC book. Then cash book. Yeah. PC voucher means petty cash voucher, petty cash book, and then cash book, and then payment voucher, etc. Then you can see we will be transferring it to the general ledger, and then cash book we are transferring. So here you can see cash book. Cash book is, if you look at this diagram, you can see cash book is in between the prime entry books and the accounts. Why is that? Keep in mind, cash book acts as both a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. So cash book has a dual role in this situation. Cash book acts as a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. That is why cash book is commonly identified as two prime entry books as well as a ledger account. Then we have for journal vouchers, general journal. We will look at it later as to what is the use of these relevant prime entry books. Then we have shown below are few source of documents and few prime entry books. However, there may be some other prime entry books or ledger accounts according to the nature of the business, business. So first we have the transaction or the document, that is source document that is relevant. Type of the transaction. Then we have the source document. Then we have prime entry book, that is preliminary book or prime entry book. Then we have the ledger account related to those transactions. Right? So first we look at the type of the transaction. First type is cash receipt. Receipt of cash. Cash receipt. So receipts of cash, the source document is what we call as a receipt. So that is whenever a company receives some money from a customer, they will issue a receipt, a document called a receipt. So that document will be the source document that we are considering for the financial transactions. So without a source document, we will not be able to track those transactions. So the source document that we are considering would be the receipt. And then prime entry book for the relevant receipts are cash book. So if there is a cash receipt, we will be recording it in the cash book. Ledger account also cash book. That's what I said. Cash book acts as a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. Prime entry book as well as a ledger account. Then we have cash payments. If we are doing a cash payment, then the source document will be payment voucher. So for every payment, generally a payment voucher is raised by the entity. Now again, don't think that all these source documents must be there in every company. No. These source documents are the source documents which are commonly found in the companies for these different types of transactions. But company to company, they might decide that they need these transactions, or they need this source document, or they don't need this source document. The source documents that are there in the company will be available based on the control environment that is there in the company. If it's a large company, they might have additional numbers of source documents. But if it's a small company which is managed by the owner, they might have a limited number of source documents. Right? So likewise, company to company, the types of the source documents and the amounts of the source documents will be different. Right? Some companies might have about 10 types of source documents, another company might have about 5 types of source documents, another company might have about 3 types of source documents. Likewise, the source document will vary. Then you can see bought goods on credit. Bought goods on credit, the source document is generally the purchase invoice. So here the purchase invoice means the invoice issued by the supplier. Invoice issued by the supplier. Purchase invoice. For us to, when we purchase something, we will be getting a purchase invoice from the supplier. So preliminary book, the prime entry book is the purchase journal. So there is a prime entry book called purchase journal. So all the purchases that have been made, we will be first recording it in the purchase day book. And then the summarized version or summarized amounts of the purchase day book, we will be transferring it to the purchase account. Purchase account is the related ledger account that we are considering. Then we have another type of transaction that could happen in a company is purchase return. Purchase return. Purchase return means whenever we have gone and made a purchase, right? If those purchase or the goods that we purchase are not on our specifications, or if they have delivered some goods which we have not ordered, or let's say we have ordered about 100 units but they have delivered 150, then we will be returning the additional goods back to the entity, additional goods back to the supplier. So those we call as purchase returns. Purchase return. So if there is a purchase return, generally what we do is the company will issue a debit note. A note called debit note. Debit note. So if there is a purchase return, generally we issue a debit note. So the debit note, you can see, the prime entry book related to the debit note or purchase returns would be purchase return journal. Purchase return journal. So there is a prime entry book called purchase return journal where we record all the purchase returns that are happening in the company. And then the summary of the purchase returns which are recorded in the purchase return journal will be transferred into the ledger account, purchase return account. Purchase return account. So purchase returns, we will be having the source document of debit note, and then it will be recorded in the purchase return journal, and the purchase return journal summary will be transferred to the purchase return account. Then we have credit sales. Credit sales, we have sales invoice. Credit sales mean sales that we made on credit basis. So for that, the source document is the invoice that we issue to our customer. Invoice that we issue to our customer. Sales invoice. So previous one was the purchase invoice, that is the supplier who issues the purchase invoice to us. So here it's the other way. When we do a sale, we will be issuing a sales invoice to our customer. Sales invoice to our customer. So sales invoice and the related prime entry book is sales journal, or we can call it as the sales day book. And then the relevant ledger account or the summary of the transactions in the sales day book will be transferred into the sales account. Will be transferred into the sales account. Then we have sales returns. Sales return. Sales returns means the sales that we have done to the customers, if there is a quality issue or if we have something submitted which they have not ordered, the customer will return to us. Customer will return to us. That is what we call as the sales return. So if there is a sales return, generally we issue a credit note in the name of the customer. Credit note. We call it as a credit note. Credit note and the relevant or related prime entry book is the sales return journal. Sales return journal is the related prime entry book. And the summary of the prime entry book, as we discussed in that diagram, we will be transferring it to the relevant ledger account. Relevant ledger account, that is sales return account. Then we have petty cash expenses. So petty cash is something which is different from the cash book. Cash book is used to make the record the payments which are made in cash. So if those cash payments are very in minute nature, like for example, if our cash book is about, we are talking about transactions worth of 100,000, 200,000, and if there are any payments made for 20 rupees, 10 rupees or 50 rupees, we don't go and record those in the cash book. Instead, what we do is we use a petty cash book, where we record those transactions. So petty cash expenses will be, the source document for that would be petty cash voucher. Petty cash voucher. Petty cash voucher is the source document for petty cash expenses. And then as the prime entry book, we will have the petty cash book. Separated from the cash book, we will have the petty cash book. Again, similar to cash book, petty cash book also plays a dual role as a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. As a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. So then we have petty cash book. Then we have purchase of fixed assets or bad debts or transferring or research. So those are transactions which are not something to do with an external party or something which is different from the normal trade transactions. We use a document or the source document called journal voucher. Because for those transactions which are not recorded in other prime entry books which are commonly in the company, we use a separate source document that is called the journal voucher, and those journal vouchers will be recorded in the prime entry book. We call it as the general journal. General journal. So usually what is there in the general journal would be the double entries. Because if there are any entries that have been passed not through a source document but by way of account and let's say error correction. Let's say something like we have posted into a different account which should have been posted into a separate account. So we will be putting as an error correction. Or some sort of a, let's say, a write-off of bad debts. So there is no supporting document, there is no source document generated from external parties. Instead, there is a source document generated internally. That is the journal voucher. So the internal source document we will be using and we will be recording it in the general journal, which is the prime entry book. And from the general journal, it will be transferred to the respective general ledger account. So this, whatever the transaction that is recorded in, or whatever the transaction that is being monitored in the general ledger will have different ledger accounts that will have impact on those transactions. So those transactions will be transferred to the general ledger relevant related ledger account. Then we have exchange notes, bills receivable day book, and the relevant ledger account. Exchange notes, it's the bills payable day book. So that is, sometimes we have the goods that we exchange, right? Bills payable and bills receivable, those things we are concerned. So why do we use these source documents? Usefulness of source document. So usefulness of source documents, you can see, being the basic document for transaction, as a proof for the occurrence of the transaction, transferability of a responsibility due to having a signature, as a basis to record the transaction in the books, right? So why do we need these source documents? What is the requirement? Why is it needed to have a source document? Why? Because without a source document, we will not have any document for us to verify whether the transaction has happened or not. There's no way for us to go back and check whether actually this transaction relates to something. In case if there's an error, we cannot go back and check as to whether this transaction relates to what account or what is this transaction nature. So source document is the basic document related to the transaction that we are accounting. So whatever the transaction type that we account, we have a related source document. So we have a basis of evidence for the transaction that has happened. And then we have the transferability of the responsibility. That is, whenever source document is raised, there will be a person who is going to authorize it. Let's say, for example, sales document, sales invoice. So if the company is making a sales invoice to someone, then the sales manager or the sales clerk will be signing that. So he takes over the responsibility that actually this type of a sale has happened. So then the accountant does not require to go back. He is not required to go back and look at whether the transaction has actually happened, whether it has, whether it is the amounts are correct, whether it's different value, whether the customer is different. All these things he is not required to go and verify because there is a person who has taken the responsibility. So the accountant just have to look at those documents and do the necessary adjustments. So transferability of responsibility to having a signature is also one of the key elements, one of the key requirements of having a source document. And then we have as a basis to record the transactions in books. As a basis to record the transactions in the book. So as I mentioned earlier, whenever we are recording the transaction, there should be a basis. There should be a document for us to say, okay, this is the value of the transaction. Otherwise, there's no value for us to take that as a basis. So source document gives us the basis for the documentation. Right? Basis for the documentation. Then we have cash book or the cash account. Cash book or the cash account, that is what I mentioned as the first prime entry book that we are going to discuss. First prime entry book that we are going to discuss. So before going to the prime entry books, we'll have a discussion as on the source documents. What these source documents are and what are the definitions of these source documents. So apart from those source documents, we have some other source documents as well. That is, for example, remittance advice. Why do we need the remittance advice? And then we have quotations, we have purchase orders, we have sales orders, we have GRN, we have goods dispatch notes. So you can refer the pages 84 to 86. Sorry, 87. 84 to 87 of your study text, which you are going to buy from the institute, right? I'll request the IAS to give a copy of these pages meantime until you purchase those study text. So these details of those source documents as to the role of the source document, as to definition of those source documents are detailed explained in these pages. Page number 84 to 86. Sorry, 87. 84 to, sorry, 88. Page number 84 to 88. 84 to 88. Please make a note. You can read those pages 84 to 88. Right? It is important you read and understand those pages. This is on the volume 1 of the business level financial accounting study text. Right? This is I have taken a printout of that one. You will be able to get the hard copies from the institute. Anyway, you have to buy this at the end before the examination. So keep in mind, financial accounting volume 1, page 84 to 88. 84 to 88. So you can read that. It gives you a description of those source documents and the uses of those source documents, what are mandatorily required to be there on those source documents. It is mentioned in this chapter. So So you can just read out those 4 pages. You can get an understanding of what these source documents are and why are we need to maintain these different types of source document. Right. So next we'll look at the prime entry book, cash book. Cash book. Prime entry book related to the cash book. Right. So you can see cash book or the cash account. This book is maintained for recording transaction that involves cash. In other words, cash account is written in the cash book. So simply cash book is there. It acts as a dual role, as I mentioned earlier. It acts as a general ledger account as well as it acts as a prime entry book. Since the cash transactions are voluminous, separate cash book is maintained for cash transactions. So all the cash transactions are maintained in this prime entry book for cash related expenses and income. All cash related receipts, payments are recorded in this book. It is considered that the cash book plays a dual role as it is treated as a ledger account as well as a journal. Journal means a prime entry book. So it acts as a ledger account as well as a prime entry book. So cash account or the cash book plays a dual role. So underline the words, plays a dual role, plays a dual role, plays a dual role. Then we can see, cash book is an asset account. So when it comes to cash book in the ledger accounts, when we categorize those accounts in the ledger categories, as we discussed in the previous example, so it comes under a asset account. It's an asset account that is there in the general ledger, asset account. Cash book can be subdivided into following. So there are 2 types of cash books generally we practice. One is single column cash book. Cash book with cash column only. Single column cash book. And then the other one, intact cash book with bank column only, where receipts are bank and intact all payments are made in check. So, different types of cash books are available. Single column cash books and then only with bank column. Bank column means all the transactions are happening through checks. All the transactions are in the company are happening through checks. Then we have only the bank column in the cash book. Some companies, what they do is they have both cash payments as well as check. You can see cash book with cash and bank column. Third one, cash book with cash and bank column, which is called a double column cash book. Double column cash book. So cash book has 2 columns. One is for the cash and other one is for the bank transactions. Fourth one, cash book with cash and bank column together with discount column. So sometimes when there is a discount, we will be adding it to the cash book as well. So analyzed cash book, receipts and payments analysis. So there are different types of cash books which are commonly being practiced in the companies, right? So there are being practiced in the companies, but the most common one is the double column cash book, because almost all the companies will have both cash payments as well as check payments. So if there are cash payments as well as check payment, it is important to maintain a double column cash book as a prime entry book. So you can see the formats of the cash book, right? Formats of the cash book, you can see it below. So single column cash book, you can see the information that is required to be entered in a cash book. You can see you need to enter the transaction date and you need to enter the receipt, that is the receipt number, then the description of the transaction, that is whether it's a sales related receipt, whether it's another receipt, whether it's a receipt from the, let's say, cash introduced by the owner, whether it can be something which is tax refund or something like that. And then folio. Folio is generally folio means, now this folio column is used in case of where the general ledger is maintained on manual basis, that is on the hard copies. Now let's say, for example, if we are looking at a receipt that is from a debtor A, right? Debtor A has paid 100,000 rupees to the company. So in the receipt side, we'll be putting the date and then the receipt number, then the description as the data A or cash receipt, and then folio means where the other side of the entry is recorded. That is, debit the cash, credit the debtor account. So where the debtor account maintained, in case of its page number 15 or page number 20 or page number 13 or page number 55 of the account ledger book, that is what we record in the folio. That is what we record in the folio. And then the value of the transaction. So you can see cash book has two sides. One is the debit side and the other one is credit side. So we discussed initially for the double entry, there will be a debit side as well as a credit side. So generally, the debit side means the left-hand side. Credit side means the right-hand side. Debit side means the left-hand side. Credit side means the right-hand side. Keep that in mind. Debit is the left-hand side. Credit is the right-hand side. All the receipts and payments in the form of notes and coins can be recorded in this account. Further, the receipts and payments made only by checks could also be recorded in this type of a single column cash book if required. But both cash and checks cannot be recorded simultaneously in the single column cash book. Now, the single column cash book will be used in a situation where the company is practicing the payments only through cash, or all the transactions are happening through cash or only through bank accounts. But practically, it won't happen because the majority of the transactions are happening in both ways, right? That is why the single column cash book is not commonly used in the companies, right? Single column cash books are used in a situation where the transactions are happening only through cash or only through bank or checks. Next we have double column cash book. Double column cash book. All the receipts and payments in the form of notes or coins or checks through the bank current account can be recorded in this account. So here we can record both the bank payments or both the bank receipts as well as cash payments or cash receipts. So you can see how this double column cash, what are the information that is been there included in the double column cash book. So date, receipt number, description, folio number, and then we have two columns, cash and bank. Cash and bank. That is, if the transaction is related to cash, we'll be recording it in the cash. If the transaction is related to the bank, we'll be recording in the bank. So same way, we have the credit side, where date, voucher, description, folio number, cash and the bank are there. Cash and the bank are there. Now we'll see rules to be followed for making entries in the cash book having separate columns for cash and bank. Receipts. All receipts, whether in form of cash, checks, money orders, postal orders, etc., should be entered on the debit side of the cash column since all the above categories of money are still in hand. So generally, if it's a receipt, we know that if it's an increase in the asset, it will be a debit entry. So cash book, unlike the other journal books or other prime entry books, cash book acts as both a day book as well as a general ledger account. Therefore, we have two sides, debit side and the credit side. Payments, cash payment should be entered into the credit side of the cash column. Check payment should be entered into the credit side of the bank column. So that's why we have two columns, cash column and the bank column. Payment made partly by a check and partly by a cash. The part of the payment made by check should be entered into the credit side of the bank column. That part paid by the cash on the credit side of the cash column. So sometimes there can be scenario where we are making a payment partly by cash and partly by check. So that sort of arrangement also can be recorded in this double column cash book. Double column cash book. Then we have when cash, checks, money orders and postal orders are deposited into the bank, what happens at this point is that bank receives money and cash pays money. So first of all, we will be recording it in the cash, and then from the cash we will be reversing it and we will be recording it in the bank. That is why debit bank column on the receipt side, and credit cash column on the payment side. So we will look at this when we are discussing the example question. Since both bank and cash are in the same account, this double entry is known as contra and denoted by the letter C. So as I mentioned in the folio, generally what we do is we will be mentioning where the other entry is passed. Where the other entry is passed. But in this case of an entry, it will be a contra entry. That is, debit side in the cash book bank account, credit side in the cash book cash account. So it's called a contra entry. Contra entry. We do not put a ledger folio number for that one, so we put a C. When money is drawn from bank, what happens at this point is when there is no sufficient cash in hand, money is withdrawn from the bank. The entry should be debit cash column on the receipt side, credit cash column. Here two entries are known as contra. Entries are known as contra. When money is received directly at the bank or paid directly by the bank, in certain instances, money will be received directly by the bank or paid by the bank on behalf of the business. Entries arising in the cash book out of these transactions in the books would be receipts, debit bank column with the amount of money received directly by the bank, and payments, credit bank column with the amount of money paid directly by the bank. So this is how we are using these, how we are recording the transactions in this cash account, cash book. So cash book will have a dual role. One is it acts as the general ledger account, and the other one is it acts as the prime entry book. So now we'll look at this question number 5. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Why don't you read the steps to be followed in recording the transactions in the 2-column cash book. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Just read out the page 11. Just read out page 11. Right. Now we'll see how to answer this question. Question number 5. The cash balance of Mr. A's business as at 1st January 2019 was 50,000. He has deposited 30,000 in the bank in order to open a bank current account under the name of the company. The transactions of the business in the month of January are stated below. It is the policy of the business that all checks are deposited in the following day. So that means, checks are first obtained and checks are first recorded in the cash account and then deposited in the bank on the following day. So here you are required to enter the above transactions in the 2-column cash book. So first we'll take down the 2-column cash book. Since the receipt numbers are not given in the example question, so I'm not going to put up the column related to receipt number. So I'm just putting up the other columns. Always keep in mind, right side is the credit side and left side is the debit side. I took down the headings. So here it's the cash column. Here it's the bank column. And then with the double line, I'm going to segregate the debit side and the credit side. So again, we have the date, description, date, description, then we have the folio number, then cash and bank. So now we'll see how are we going to record these transactions. First paragraph says, the cash balance of Mr. A's business as at 1st January 2019 was 50,000. He has deposited 30,000 in the bank in order to open a bank current account under the name of the company. Right. So here, first we have the balance. So first balance is cash balance. So cash balance, is it a debit balance or a credit balance? Debit balance or a credit balance? If you go back to the page number 5 of the TUTE, you can see account type, asset, increase debit, decrease credit. The higher balance generally is a debit balance. So if it's an asset, the higher balance should be a debit balance. So similarly, cash in hand is also an asset. The higher balance should be a debit balance. Higher balance should be a debit balance. So here what we are doing is, first January 2019 balance brought forward, that is the balances that they have deposited. So they have started on the 1st January 2019, and this is owner has introduced. Cash balance of Mr. A's business as at 1st January 2019 was 50,000. So balance brought forward. Cash balance as at 1st January 2019 was 50,000. So it's a debit balance of 50,000. Then he has deposited 30,000 in the bank in order to open a bank current account under the name of the company. So out of this 50,000, this 50,000, and then he has another 30,000 in the bank balance. So bank balance as at 1st January was 30,000. Right? Bank balance as at 1st January was 30,000. The transaction of the business in the month of January as stated below. Now this is the opening balance. So opening balance of the cash account, it's a debit balance. Now we'll see first one. 1st January 2019, a check of 10,000 paid to XYZ Limited, a creditor of the business. So the company has paid 10,000 rupees to its creditor. So now how are we going to record it? Should it be now here we are looking at the cash account only. So when you look at the double entry of the cash account, should it be a debit entry or credit entry to the cash account? Debit or credit? Cash account is an asset account. Asset accounts, if it's an increase, it's a debit. If it's a decrease, it's a credit. So here payment of cash or payment of a check to creditor. Payment of a check to creditor means a reduction of the asset account. That means it should be a credit entry. So credit side of the cash book, credit side of the cash book, credit side of the cash book, on 1st January 2019, payment to a creditor. So description is payment to a creditor. Payment to a creditor, 10,000. So this 10,000, should it be accounted in the cash account or the bank account? Should it be accounted in the cash account or the bank account? Cash or bank. Why? See, here they say paid to XYZ Limited, a credit of the business. It's a check that is paid. Check means there is no entry to the cash account. It has to go to the bank account. Bank account. 10,000 bank account. 10,000 credit to the bank account. What about the other side of the entry? Now initially when we discussed the debit double entries, cash account is debit credited or the bank account is credited. Debit where? Debit has to be the trade creditors account. Trade creditors account related to XYZ Limited. But this example question, we are not required to look at the other side of the entries. But just for the knowledge purpose, now we are discussing XYZ account will be debited. So ideally, in this folio number, we will have to put the folio number related to the XYZ account. XYZ account. Folio number related to the XYZ account. So folio number related to the XYZ account we'll be putting here, and then the relevant entry will be passed in the related ledger account for the trade creditor XYZ. So creditor, here the settlement of creditor XYZ. Second one, on 2nd January 2019, 12,000 received from Mr. Y, a debtor of the business. 12,000 received from Mr. Y, a debtor of the business. So what is it? What will happen? Now, have we received a check or a cash? We don't know. We don't know. Have we received a check or cash? We don't know. So what will happen? Here, if you look at the initial paragraph, you can see it is the policy of the business that all the checks are deposited in the following day. So whether it's a check or a cash, what will happen is we will have to deposit it to the cash account on the first day, because the check deposits are being done on the subsequent day. So we'll assume that this is a check. So received from Mr. Y, debtor of the business, within brackets say a check. So let's say Mr. Y has settled through a check. So if that is the case, how are we going to pass the entry? So first we have a debit entry related to the cash receipt. 2nd January 2019, we have received debtor collection. Debtor collected from Mr. Y amounting to 12,000. 12,000. There's no bank entry because we have received a check. Initially will be debited to the cash account. On the next day only it will be deposited into the bank account. So on the 2nd January 2019, debtor collected Mr. Y. So the ledger folio number here ideally should be the number which is relevant to the debtor Y. Debtor Y. Folio number or account number related to debtor Y. Now what happens is, do we have any transaction for the next day? Third, there are no transactions given, but there is one more transaction. Why? Because in the introduction paragraph it says all the check receipts are deposited into the bank on the next day. Deposited into the bank on the next day. So then what will happen? On 3rd January 2019, there is a deposit to the bank. So if there is a deposit to the bank, then it should be what? If we are, what happens is we are depositing to the bank through the cash we have. So we will be reducing from our cash balance and depositing it in the bank balance. So reduction, deposit to the bank. How much? We have received 12,000. So in the next day we are supposed to deposit that 12,000 into the bank account. So here cash will be reduced by 12,000, and then on the debit side, deposit to the bank, it is 12,000. 12,000. Now from the cash it is reduced and it is deposited to the bank balance. You can see debit the bank account, credit the cash balance. But now here you can see what should be the folio number for this one. Folio number. It is a contra entry. So we are putting C here. Contra entry as mentioned in the example. the paragraph contra entry C, because it is an entry that is happening within the same account. Within the cash book itself, it's a contra entry. So we put it as C in the folio section. So likewise, can you see the other transactions? I'll give you 10 minutes. Can you try and do the other transactions? I'll give you 10 minutes. Try these other transactions. Or we can try it within 5 minutes. Right. Let's look at these transactions. Now, the fourth one. On 4th January 2019, 1,700 paid to settle the monthly electricity bill. So here we have to assume that it's paid by cash. So 4th January 2019, electricity expenses 1,700. Cash credit 1,700, no impact to the bank. 5th January 2019, 5,000 paid by checks for salaries. So 5,000 paid by checks for salaries. That means on 5th January 2019, it's a reduction in the bank balance. So salaries 5,000 will be credited to the bank account. On 6th January 2019, 17,000 received by check from Mr. C, debtor of the business. So again, same basis. On 6th January 2019, receipt from debtor C, amounting to 70,000. So initially we will be depositing it in the cash balance. On 7th, purchase goods for 5,000 from ABC PLC by paying through check. So before that, on 6th we have received the check. On 7th, we are supposed to deposit it in the bank. So deposit to the bank. Again, it will be a contra entry. From cash, we are reducing 17,000. And it's going to be deposited to the bank on 7th January 2019. Deposit to the bank. Contra entry 17,000. Then we have on the 7th, purchase goods for 5,000 from ABC PLC by paying through a check. Purchases from ABC by paying through a check for a value of 5,000. Then on 10th, bank has informed to the business that check of Mr. C was dishonored and 350 has been charged as dishonored checks. Now what happens? So debtor C, we have deposited into the bank, and at the same time, the debtor's check was returned. So if the check was returned, what should we do? Then we need to reverse that back to their account. Reverse that back to account. So because initially we thought that the 17,000 would be realized in the bank, but now what has happened is the check has been dishonored. Check was returned. So if the check is returned, what we'll do is we will have to return it back. So then on 10th January 2019, reversal, that is debtor C. Debtor C, 17,000 will be reduced from the bank. And also there had been a charge, dishonored charge. So on the same day, 10th January 2019, bank charge expense. Bank charge expense, dishonored check of 350 has to be deducted from the bank. XYZ Limited has informed that check received by them was returned by the bank. So we have paid XYZ, that is on 1st January we have paid 10,000 and the bank has returned it back to them. So that means there might have been an error in the check. So what will happen? So that payment is not effective, therefore we'll have to reverse that. So on 12th January 2019, check return, check issued but return related to XYZ amounting to 10,000 that will be deposited back to the bank because the bank balance has to be increased. Then 13th January 2019, a check for an amount of 5,000 received from Mr. B, a friend of Mr. A, has been encashed. What has happened? So a check for an amount of 5,000. So first what happens is, now there are two transactions here. Encashed means you deposit the bank check into the bank account and take the cash back. So here, initially we will be receiving the 5,000 check. So on 13th January 2019, check received from Mr. B amounting to 5,000. So as the policy, they will be initially depositing it into cash, and on the next day they will be realizing it. And then you can see on 14th January 2019, so check should be first deposited to the bank. Check should be first deposited to the bank. This is going to be a contra entry, and that on the 14th January 2019, this is bank deposit of 5,000. So once we deposit it to the bank, next what has happened is we have encashed it. We have taken the cash out from the bank. So on the same day, 14 January 2019, encash check of Mr. B amounting to 5,000. Deposited to 5,000 and encashed 5,000. So on the first day, on 13th, we have received the check. And on 14th, we have deposited that into bank. And then we have taken the cash out from the bank. That is what encashed means. Then on 15th, a check of 3,000 has been encashed and 2,950 paid to the bearer of the check, Mr. W, after deducting 50 rupees as commission. After deducting 50 rupees as commission. Now what has happened? Mr. W has given a check of 3,000. Mr. W has given a check of 3,000 and it was deposited and it will be encashed. So first we will be having the deposit entry. So 15th January 2019, check received from Mr. W. Check received from Mr. W amounting to 3,000. That will be initially deposited in the cash account. Then on the next day, 16th January 2019, bank deposit to Mr. Bank deposit, it's a contra entry. From cash, we are going to reduce 3,000 and it will be deposited into the bank on the same day, 16th January 2019. Bank deposit contra entry 3,000. Sorry. Deposit to the bank 3,000. And then what has happened is 2,950 has been encashed. So on the same day, so on the same day, 16 January 2019, Mr. W check encashed for 2,950. 2,950. A computer is purchased for 30,000 by paying through a check. So on 17th January 2019, a computer has been purchased. A computer has been purchased Computer has been purchased by paying 30,000. So computer purchased by paying 30,000 and that is credited to the bank account. Then we have on 31st January, as per bank statement received from the bank for the month, it was revealed that 25,000 has been deducted by the bank as loan installments. Further, the bank has charged 100 as bank charges and the interest on fixed deposit of 2,000 has been credited to bank account. So, adjustments which we have not recorded in the financial statements will be recorded. It was bank loan installment. Loan installment deducted 25,000 credit to the bank, and then bank charges deducted 100 rupees from the bank account, and then on the fixed deposit interest income 31st January 2019 there had been an interest income to the bank account amounting to 2,000. Interest income amounting to 2,000. Now you can see, depending on the transaction and depending on the type of the balance, whether it's paid through the cash account or whether it's paid through the bank account, we will have to record the transactions in the prime entry book, cash book. So here you can see there have been contra entries, that is deposits to the bank and then related to the settlements to the bank. So if there is any entry which is going to be reversed through the same bank account, we are going to reverse it to the, we are going to put it as a contra entry. Now we have entered all the transactions. What we need to do is we need to balance this account. So once the account is entered, once the transactions are entered into a particular account, what we need to do is we need to balance this account. So we'll total this up. We'll total it up and see. Now you can see, now we have totaled this up. Now when it comes to the cash book or any general ledger account, once you enter all the transactions, you need to balance that account. That is, you need to see which side has the higher balance and then take that total into the both sides. Now in this case, if you look at the bank column, the total of the debit side in the bank column is 80,000, whereas the total of the credit side in the bank column is 100,400. So 100,400 is the higher amount. So I have taken the 100,400 as the balance for both sides. And the difference, here we have only 80,000 worth of transaction, difference of 20,400 will be the balance carried forward to the next month. That is the bank balance that is being carried forward to the next month, which will be the opening balance of the next month. So here you can see all the receipts are debited, all the payments are credited. So it's like the reconciliation of the bank account. Whatever we have received minus whatever we have paid. So balance amount means the balance amount of bank balance remaining, amount of bank balance remaining. So here you can see in the cash account, debit side total is 87,000, whereas credit side total is 38,700. So credit side total is 87,000. So higher amount is 87,000, that minus 38,700. It's 48,300. So here, balance carried forward in the cash balance is 48,300. 48,300. Balance carried forward from the cash account is 48,300. So 48,300 is a credit balance, and for the next month it will be a debit balance. Debit balance. So when you carry forward, what happens is a general account, right? A general ledger account. In principle, the general account ledgers, we put it like this, T format, right? The general ledger accounts, in principle, we put it as T accounts. So same thing, T account, this side is the debit side, this side is the credit side. Debit side and the credit side. So whatever the balances, whatever the transactions that we enter into debit side and credit side, we balance it, this is the balance carried forward to the next period. So on the next period, it will be the balance brought forward from the previous month. Balance brought forward from the previous month. So if the higher balance is remaining in the debit side, the balance brought forward to the next month will be on the debit side. If the higher balance is on the credit side, then the balance brought forward to the next month will also be the credit side. Now here if you look at the bank balance, so bank balance, the higher amount was on the credit side. Higher amount was on the credit side. That means the bank balance carried forward to the next month will be on the credit side. So if there is a credit side bank balance carried forward to the next month, that means what? If it's an asset account, there should be a debit balance. If it's a liability account, there will be a credit balance. So you can go back to page number 5 of this tute. 5 of the tute, you can see generally the higher balance, the fourth column, if it's an asset account, the higher side will be, or higher balance will be on the debit side. But if it's a liability account, the higher side will be on the credit side. Higher side will be on the credit side. So asset account, if it's a debit balance, it will be an asset account. If it's a credit side, it will be a liability account. Now the question is, in this bank column, the higher amount is in the credit side. Credit side. What is the meaning of that? If the higher amount is a credit side, that means is it a asset account? It's not an asset account thereafter. If the higher amount is on the credit side, that means it's a liability or an equity account. This is not an equity account, so it's a liability account. So bank balance becoming a liability account means what? Means what? There is a bank overdraft. There is a bank overdraft. Overdraft is there. But in the cash balance, you can see the higher amount is on the debit side. Higher amount is on the debit side, so cash balance remains as an asset for the next month. Generally, bank balances could become liability because of the bank overdraft facilities available, but cash balances cannot be a liability because if you don't have cash, you can't pay. Cash balance is a higher, credit is higher means you have more credits than debits. That means you have paid something which you have not received. Because all the receipts will be on the debit side, all the payments will be on the credit side. If the higher balance is on the credit side, that means you have paid much higher than the amount that you have received. That is okay for a bank balance because there could be a bank overdraft. But that cannot be the case for a cash balance. Because cash balance, if you want to pay something, before that you need to receive it. So whatever the amount that you have received only, you will be paying in case of a cash balance. So in this example, when you balance it, you can see the cash balance total or the carried forward amount is 48,300, which is the opening balance for the month of February. Bank balance, closing balance is, or carried forward balance is 20,400, which is the opening balance for the month of February. So likewise, you can see in this example, we have looked at how to record the transactions in the prime entry book with regard to cash and bank. Two columnar cash book. So in this two columnar cash book, as I mentioned earlier, this is not only a prime entry book, but the two columnar cash book acts as both a prime entry book as well as a ledger account. Therefore, we will have to consider this as a part of the ledger balances as well. So ledger, similarly, when we look at the ledger accounts also, we do the same practice. We look at the debit, we look at the credit, and we see the higher amount on the which side, and then we balance the account. So the balance which has the higher amount will be the amount that will be carried forward to the next month. Right. So with that, I think we can take a break. So after the break, we can discuss the balance part.